One early morning before sunrise, while the palace was calm and everyone was still asleep, Obie sat outside his hut deep in thought. Pondering the future of the kingdom, the heavy weight of his responsibilities pressed on his mind. Suddenly, his musings were interrupted by an astonishing sight. A mighty snake was slithering towards the princess's chamber from the back door. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a very wicked king named King Olu. He was incredibly selfish, treating not only his wife but also the villagers with utter disdain. Indeed, he had skillfully ascended to the throne through deceit, taking a position that was not rightfully his. With his ill-gotten power, the king made the villagers suffer greatly, leaving them to regret the day he became their ruler. However, despite his cruelty, he had a daughter, Princess Ola, who was renowned for her extraordinary beauty and kind heart. The villagers saw in her a beacon of hope amidst their suffering and prayed that one day, she would marry a good man who would rule the kingdom with love and harmony. Despite the king's wickedness, he never forgot to adore and pampered his daughter, indulging in her every wish by giving her everything she ever asked for. Yet, despite his lavish gifts, the princess remained unspoiled, for she was genuinely kind to everyone in the village, extending her compassion to the children, the elderly, and those in need. Furthermore, she often ventured out of the palace to share food and gifts with the old women of the community. She would sit and listen to their stories, offering them companionship and comfort. Her generosity extended to providing shelter for those without a place to stay, ensuring that no one was left out in the cold. As a result, her acts of kindness endeared her to the villagers, who admired her for her selflessness and warmth. The king had taken the throne from his elder brother, who was supposed to be the next king of the kingdom. Using his cunning ways, he tricked his brother into going to the forest where he planned his attack. In the shadows of the dense woods, he unfolded his plan with ruthless precision. His brother, unsuspecting and vulnerable, was ambushed and killed. The tragic event left the kingdom in mourning, but for him, it was the gateway to power. With his brother gone, he seized the opportunity to claim the throne, casting aside any remorse or guilt for his actions. To solidify his claim, he turned to the village elders and the medicine man, promising them great rewards in return for their support. Consequently, with their influence and his deceitful promises, they helped crown him as the next king of the kingdom. The ceremony was grand, filled with pomp and circumstance, but beneath the surface lay a web of lies and betrayal. The village elders and the medicine man, once revered figures, were now complicit in King Olu's treachery. However, once he had secured his position, he revealed his true nature. The promises he had made were swiftly broken. To ensure his absolute power, he ordered the medicine man to be killed, ensuring that no one could challenge his authority or reveal the truth about his ascension. The village elders along with those who had supported him were banished, and their loyalty was repaid with exile. Consequently, the king's wrath and paranoia soon spread through the kingdom like wildfire, instilling fear in the hearts of the people. Before long, the villagers discovered the truth about his misdeeds. Whispers of his treachery and the brutal killing of his brother reached every corner of the kingdom. As a result, the once peaceful realm was now ruled by a tyrant, and the people lived in constant fear. Yet, amidst the darkness, there remained a glimmer of hope. For the villagers saw a beacon of light in the king's daughter, Princess Ola. Her kind heart and gentle nature offered a stark contrast to her father's cruelty. Despite everything, the princess carried a deep secret, one she had been keeping for her entire life. It was a burden she bore alone, a truth that weighed heavily on her soul. As the days passed, the villagers' cries for relief grew louder, their hope resting on the shoulders of the young princess. They believed that if she took a husband, a man of integrity and strength, he could challenge King Olu's rule and bring peace to the kingdom. One evening, as the princess walked through the palace, she met with her father sitting all by himself, consumed in deep thought. She approached him with a heavy heart, her mind burdened by the weight of her secret. "What troubles you, my daughter?" her father asked, his voice softened by genuine concern. The princess hesitated, unsure whether to reveal her innermost thoughts to her father. However, the anguish in her heart compelled her to speak. "Father, I cannot bear the thought of deceiving a man into marrying me. My secret, it weighs heavily on me. What if he discovers the truth and rejects me?" King Olu's expression softened, his heart breaking at the sight of his daughter's tears. Though he had been ruthless in his quest for power, his love for his daughter was unwavering. "My dear Ola, you are royalty. Any man would be honored to have you as his wife, regardless of your secret. You must trust in your worth, for you are a princess, beloved by all." Yet, the princess shook her head, her resolve unwavering. "I do not seek a husband who desires me for my title or the riches of our kingdom. I seek a man who will love me for who I am, secret and all. I cannot marry for the sake of ambition. I fear what will happen in the night when I won't be able to bear the urge to transform into my real self," she cried out to her father. "What will happen to my husband if he decides to find me in the middle of the night and realizes I am not who I am, but a snake?" Her father felt a pang of guilt pierce his heart as he looked into his daughter's eyes. He knew that his own ambition had clouded his judgment, blinding him to the true desires of his beloved daughter. "Forgive me, Ola," he said softly, his voice choked with emotion. "I have been blind to your wishes, consumed by my own desires. But know this, I will support you in whatever path you choose, even if it means defying tradition and expectation." The princess felt a surge of gratitude wash over her as she embraced her father, their bond strengthened by their shared vulnerability. In that moment, she knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, she would face them with courage and conviction. As the moon rose high in the night sky, casting its gentle glow over the kingdom, Princess Ola vowed to stay true to herself, no matter the cost. In the days that followed, the princess's mind became troubled, and her secret weighed heavily on her. Late in the evenings, she would retreat behind the doors of her chamber, asking her maidens to leave her alone. Understanding the burden on her shoulders, they respected her wishes and refrained from accompanying her on her evening walks. One late evening, as the princess sat all alone, her tears flowing freely, she thought deeply about her sorrow. She knew she had to find a solution to her problem. Yearning for marriage and the love that other maidens in the community experienced, she was haunted by the knowledge of her true form. The thought of being a snake sent daggers through her heart. "Father," she whispered to herself, the words catching in her throat, "I wish to know if what I am experiencing is a curse, for I can't take it anymore. This whole thing is driving me mad, and you and Mother seem so indifferent. You both appear relaxed while I am dying each day, soaking myself in tears." In desperation, she decided to confront her father. She made her way to his chambers, her resolve hardening with each step. Entering the room, she fell at his feet, her tears soaking the floor. "Father," she cried, "I can't bear this any longer." The king looked down at his daughter, his heart heavy with sorrow. "Ola," he said gently, "you are not cursed. You are a blessed child, sent from the gods to us. You have brought us good luck." But the princess shook her head, her tears flowing even more freely. "That's not true," she cried, her voice rising in despair. "You tell me this every day, but I know you are lying. You don't understand how I feel when I find myself transformed into a snake, lying on my bed or out in the forest. Every morning, my body is bruised and aching, and yet you say I am a blessing?" Her voice echoed through the chamber, filled with pain and frustration. Rising to her feet, she looked at her father with a mix of anger and desperation. "You don't comprehend the agony I endure," she continued, her voice shaking. "This evening will soon turn to night, and once again, I will transform into a snake. Why don't you save me from this suffering and at least tell me the truth?" I need to know if there is a way to end this torment, especially if I am ever to marry and live a normal life." King Olu, tormented by his daughter's plight, felt a deep shame gnawing at his heart. He could not bear to confess to her the truth of his actions. In his quest for power and the throne, he had made a dark pact, sacrificing his daughter's spirit to Mother Earth when she was born. He had never anticipated the depth of love he would feel for her, and now, seeing her in such pain, he would have sacrificed anything, even the throne, for her happiness. "Ola," he said, his voice breaking, "please believe me when I say you are a blessing. Your mother and I love you more than words can express." However, Princess Ola, sensing her father's turmoil, looked at him with pleading eyes. "If you truly love me as you say, then help me find a way to break this curse. I cannot bear this life of suffering any longer." King Olu, torn between his guilt and love for his daughter, knelt beside her. "I will do everything in my power to help you," he promised, his heart aching with the weight of his deceit. As the night deepened, the princess felt the familiar dreadful sensation creeping over her. She knew her transformation was imminent, and she looked at her father one last time before retreating to her chambers. "I will go to my room now," she whispered. "Please find a way to save me." The king watched her go, his heart heavy with sorrow. He knew he had to find a way to break the curse he had placed upon her. Determined, he resolved to seek out the wisest sages and the most powerful sorcerers in the land. Back in her chambers, the princess felt the transformation begin. Her body convulsed, and she cried out in pain as scales replaced her skin and her limbs fused into a serpentine form. Lying on the cold floor, she wept silently, her tears shimmering like pearls in the moonlight. Meanwhile, the king, determined to save his daughter, invited the greatest sorcerers from far and wide to his palace. He was relentless, hoping that one of them might possess the knowledge or power to break the curse that tormented Princess Ola. Each sorcerer arrived with grand promises and impressive displays of magic. They performed intricate rituals, chanted ancient spells, and concocted potent potions. But despite their efforts, one by one, they admitted defeat, insisting that the curse was too strong to be broken. Their failures only deepened the king's despair, each setback a painful reminder of the dark secret he harbored. Overwhelmed by guilt and sorrow, King Olu could no longer bear to keep the truth from his daughter. He knew that she deserved to know the reason behind her suffering, the real cause of her torment. Early the next morning, he made his way to her chambers. As he entered, his heart ached at the sight before him. The princess, still in her snake form, lay coiled on the floor. Her eyes, though filled with silent pain, met his with a mix of confusion and hope. The king approached her slowly, his steps heavy with the weight of his confession. Taking a seat close to her, he began to speak, his voice trembling with shame and regret. 25 years ago, you were still in your mother's womb, he started, struggling to maintain his composure. Back then, I was consumed with a desire for power. The village was in turmoil, and my late brother Kelechi was next in line to be king. The thought of him ruling while I was still alive was unbearable to me, so I decided to kill him. The princess listened intently, her eyes widening with horror and disbelief. The rumors that had whispered through the village for years were true. Her father, the king, had murdered his own brother out of sheer ambition. The realization was a bitter pill to swallow, but she remained silent, allowing him to continue. After killing my brother, I feared the village would discover my deed and stone me to death. In my desperation, I sought protection from Mother Earth, the king explained. With the help of the medicine man and some village elders, I conducted a ritual to invoke her protection. And so, when I was asked to swear my innocence before the village, Mother Earth's power shielded me, proving me innocent, and I was crowned the next king. He paused, his eyes clouded with regret. But she demanded a heavy price for her protection. She asked for the soul of an unborn family member. Desperate for power and wealth, I accepted without hesitation. A deep sense of betrayal washed over Ola. Her own father had sacrificed her soul before she was even born, all for the sake of power. Her heart ached with a mix of anger and sorrow, but she remained silent, her snake form preventing her from expressing her anguish. I didn't realize I would come to love you so much, the king continued, his voice breaking. At the time, I hated your mother with passion, and I thought I wouldn't care for you either. But when you were born, my heart softened. I was filled with regret for what I had done. He recalled a particularly painful memory. One night, your mother found your bed empty and a snake in its place. Not knowing the truth, she asked the guards to kill the snake and go in search of you. Fortunately, I was there to stop them. I remembered the oath I had sworn to Mother Earth and realized the snake was you. That night, I was forced to tell your mother the truth. The king's eyes glistened with tears as he continued. Your mother only despised me more for what I had done. She couldn't bond with you as she once had, knowing your true identity. Her distance and her harsh words were her way of coping with the horror of what I had done. Princess Ola, now understanding the reason behind her mother's distant behavior and the constant references to her as the reward of evil, felt a mix of sorrow and anger. She realized that her mother's fear had prevented her from fully embracing her. The king, seeing the pain in his daughter's eyes, vowed to find a solution. I promise you, Ola, I will do everything in my power to break this curse, he said, his voice firm with determination. I will not rest until you are free from this torment. With that, he left her chambers, his heart heavy but resolute. As the first rays of sunlight began to filter through the windows, Princess Ola waited patiently for her transformation. The warm light touched her scales, and she felt the familiar shift as her body began to revert to its human form. Once she was fully transformed, she sat on the edge of her bed and let out a heart-wrenching cry, her sobs echoing through the empty chamber. Amidst the darkness and secrets within the palace, the atmosphere was tense and filled with unease. The princess, who was oddly excited during the day and seemed sad at night, became a subject of great curiosity, especially for Obie, the king's most trusted advisor. Obie, known for his jokes and formidable strength, was a beloved figure in the palace. His presence brought joy to the king, queen, and all the palace servants. Notably, he had a keen eye for detail and noticed the princess's difficult allure to suitors and those around her. During the day, Princess Ola interacted with everyone, from the servants to the villagers, her demeanor cheerful and engaging. However, as night fell, she would retreat to her chambers, seeking solitude. This daily transformation puzzled those around her, but no one questioned it openly, perhaps out of respect or fear of the unknown. One evening, the princess, yearning for her mother's affection, decided to approach her in the kitchen. She hoped that by helping with the vegetables, she could bridge the emotional distance between them. As she stepped into the warm, bustling kitchen, her mother, Nene, looked up and immediately paled. Panic flashed across her face, and without a word, she dropped everything and fled, her fear palpable. She is evil. Don't let her come near me with her venom, Nene cried, running to Obie for protection. Ola, sensing that her mother might soon reveal her true identity to everyone, fled back to her chambers, tears streaming down her face. For the palace servants, this was not an uncommon sight. They had often witnessed the queen's bizarre reactions to her daughter, but they never understood the depth of her fear and hostility. Meanwhile, Obie, with his characteristic kindness, tried to console the queen. He watched Ola's footsteps disappear into the distance, his heart aching for her. Despite the queen's insistence that her daughter was evil, Obie felt a strong urge to comfort the princess. Although the queen, still frantic, ordered Obie to stay away from Ola, claiming she was dangerous, he was driven by compassion and a sense of duty. Thus, he disregarded her orders and approached Ola's chamber, knocking gently on the door. Inside, with a voice choked with pain, she invited him in, not knowing who it was. As Obie entered, a shockwave ran through her. She quickly wiped her tears, realizing it was the first time a man other than her father had come into her chambers. She felt a mix of fear and vulnerability. Sensing her discomfort, he offered her a gentle smile. "Although you are a princess, you are still human, and it's very natural to cry sometimes," he said, his eyes meeting hers with genuine concern. Ola, standing at the edge of her bed, managed a small smile, recalling his reputation for making people happy rather than sad. "Do you know the tradition of our kingdom forbids men from crying?" he asked, his voice unwavering. "Yes, I do," Ola replied, with Obie taking a seat opposite her. He felt happy seeing how calm she was and relaxed around him. "And our parents also taught us that it's shameful for men to cry. But if you ask me, I will tell you it's okay to cry if it helps you feel better. It's also very important to talk to someone about your feelings. It can make a whole lot of difference and consequently make you feel better." Ola, touched by his words, felt a warmth spread through her chest. Here was someone who cared, someone who saw her pain and didn't judge. Obie continued, "I am the king's most trusted advisor, but I don't urge you to talk to me if you don't want to. However, you can always talk to your father. He loves you deeply." Ola nodded, tears welling up again but for a different reason this time. Obie, seeing her response, smiled warmly. "You are a kind princess, and nothing can change that aspect about you in my mind. The people look up to you, and they rely on your kindness. Remember, no matter what you're going through, you are a good soul, born to set things right." As Obie spoke, Ola's heart clenched with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. She was at a loss for words, overwhelmed by his kindness. He placed a comforting hand on her shoulder before leaving her chambers, his smile lingering in her mind long after he was gone. For the first time, Ola felt a glimmer of hope. A man had entered her inner circle, seeing her not as a monster but as a person worthy of kindness and compassion. Despite her mother's harsh words, he had come to her chambers unarmed, showing that he did not believe she was evil. This act of trust and empathy filled Ola with a new sense of strength. In the days that followed, Obie's words stayed with her, a beacon of light in her dark moments. She began to see him as more than just the king's advisor. He was a friend, a confidant, someone who saw her true self beyond the curse that plagued her. This newfound connection gave her the courage to face each day with a little more hope and a little less fear. Obie too felt a deepening respect and affection for the princess. He admired her strength and resilience, her ability to smile despite her mother's attitude towards her. His visits to her chambers became a regular occurrence, each conversation bringing them closer and helping Ola navigate her complicated emotions. Consequently, the palace, still shrouded in secrets and whispers, slowly began to see a change in the princess. Her interactions during the day grew even more genuine, with her smiles reaching her eyes. While she still retreated at night, she did so with the knowledge that she was not alone in her struggles. As the days went by, Princess Ola grew increasingly fond of Obie. Their bond deepened with each passing day, and she found herself looking forward to their time together. His presence brought a sense of normalcy and comfort to her troubled life, and their conversations became a cherished part of her routine. Each morning, as the first light of dawn illuminated the palace grounds, he would arrive at her chambers. They would take long walks around the palace, their discussions ranging from the affairs of the kingdom to personal anecdotes that revealed their inner thoughts and feelings. One early morning before sunrise, while the palace was calm and everyone was still asleep, Obie sat outside his hut deep in thought. Pondering the future of the kingdom, the heavy weight of his responsibilities pressed on his mind. Suddenly, his musings were interrupted by an astonishing sight. A mighty snake was slithering towards the princess's chamber from the back door. The snake seemed almost sentient as it turned to look at him before continuing its hurried journey. He stood rooted to the spot, his legs heavy and his mind racing with confusion and fear. The sheer size of the snake left him paralyzed for what felt like an eternity. After a minute that seemed to stretch on forever, he sprang into action, running to his hut and shouting for the palace guards to rise from their sleep and protect the princess. "The princess is in danger," he shouted at the top of his lungs, rousing the guards. "Go protect the princess. A mighty snake just entered her chambers right before my eyes." The guards, shocked by his urgent call, quickly armed themselves with cutlasses and hurried to her chambers. Inside, still in her snake form and waiting for sunrise to transform back, Princess Ola felt her heart racing with fear. Her mind was a whirl of emotions, her fear and anxiety intensifying. She could vividly remember Obie's expression when he saw her as a snake. It was a look that sent daggers through her heart. She feared that he might never accept their friendship again, knowing her true form. As she heard his voice commanding the guards to protect her and kill the snake, she knew she had to hide. She slithered into a hidden hole inside her chambers, a secret place her father had built for her in case of emergencies. She entered quietly, covering the entrance with ground materials to make it unnoticeable. The guards burst into the princess's chambers, searching every corner with urgency, their weapons ready to strike. Her mother, Nene, watched the scene unfold, her heart gripped with fear. Despite her terror of her daughter's snake form and the potential danger, she still harbored love for her, knowing she was innocent of her father's evil deeds. Unable to bear the thought of her daughter being harmed, she ran to her husband's chamber with tears streaming down her eyes. "Please, go save our daughter," she pleaded with King Olu, explaining the situation in a frantic rush. His face hardened with resolve as he hurried to her daughter's chamber, where he found Obie and the palace guards deep in their search. Sweat dripped from their brows as they turned over every piece of furniture and decoration, looking for the snake. "Stop the search," the king commanded, his voice firm. Obie, still gripped by fear and confusion, looked at him in disbelief. "But why? The princess is missing and she might be in danger," he protested. "We must find the snake and kill it, or it might harm her." "Stop, Obie," the king repeated, his tone brooking no argument. "You should all rest now. She is safe in my chamber sleeping," the princess mother said in a trembling voice. "I will call the chief priest first thing tomorrow morning. Close the chambers for now, she is safe with me. The snake you saw might be a spirit, or perhaps you were mistaken. But before we take any further action, we must consult the chief priest." Reluctantly, the guards and Obie withdrew from the chambers. However, as they left, Obie couldn't shake the sense of unease that filled his heart. He had worked with the king for many years and knew when he was lying. The look on Olu's face when he said she was safe was definitely one of his deceptions and lies. As he left, a chilling realization gripped him. His thoughts raced back to the evening confrontation between the princess and her mother. The queen had begged him to protect her from her daughter's venom, which now seemed a direct indication that she was indeed a snake. Walking through the palace, he replayed the events in his mind. He returned to the spot where he had first seen the snake and found traces of its path leading into the princess's chambers. Perhaps she went out in search of food and was returning, he thought, fear gnawing at his heart. The queen's behavior and the palpable fear in her eyes only solidified his doubts. The queen is not a wicked woman, he reasoned. She wouldn't want her only child to die. Despite their differences, she wouldn't wish for her to be killed. With a sense of realization and dread, he sat back in front of his hut, determined to talk to her the next morning. He needed to confirm his suspicions, to understand the truth about her being a snake. The night's events had left him deeply unsettled, and he knew that the answers he sought could change everything he thought he knew about the royal family and his role within the palace. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, he steeled himself for the conversation ahead. He could not forget his first conversation with her in her chambers. He had given a room in his heart for friendship and had also assured her that she could talk to him if she ever needed someone to listen. Thinking of the weeks that had passed with them being very good friends, he felt a pang of sadness in his heart as he prepared to go talk to her. If you enjoyed the story and will love to see more, please consider subscribing and leaving a comment. Your support will help us create part 2 and future stories. Stay tuned for more of our interesting African tales. See you in our next episode to find out about Obie's confrontation with the princess.